Hi, Dateables. Welcome to another episode of the Dateable podcast where we dig deep into the dating culture here. And as part of the digging process, we do a lot of learning along the way. And this is why we love doing this podcast, because Julie and I have just learned so much in the last almost 7 years.
I feel like I'm a different person from when I started this podcast.
You are.
And I think you're a different person also.
1,000%. Like, I think just even looking back to the gender roles conversation from 6 years ago.
God.
6 years ago, it's kind of cringy, but also I just have to accept that that was part of my growth.
Oh, it's interesting because you were such a stickler for women not making the first move because it would devalue you, which is what we've been told from books like The Rules and Cosmo and all the worst 90s literature of how to get the guy. And actually, in one of our recent episodes with Katie Storino, this was the episode that we did about taming your inner critic and confidence while dating. And she said something that stuck with me, that maybe she didn't make the first moves because she didn't want to put herself out there. It felt like she would just get rejected. So it's almost like we shield ourselves with these rules to not actually be vulnerable and put ourselves out there.
I also have to say, when I was a dating coach, I had all male clients, and they would tell me the same thing. They would say, I would love it if a woman hit on me, but I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with her because she would seem too easy for me to get. So I think these are we're just perpetuating a lot of these stereotypes and tropes in modern dating that I'm glad that we're breaking the barriers. But for so long, I think men and women were playing into these roles and actually believing that this is what was happening.
Yeah, well, it's a sign of the times also. And
yeah.
Another sign of the times is the episode we're doing today, because I am so glad that we're finally doing another look at dating as an Asian woman right now, because clearly a lot has changed in the last 2 years with COVID and, a lot of blame being placed on even Asian Americans because of COVID, resulting in AAPI hate crimes and, just it's a lot has changed with just how we look at race from the whole pandemic and aftermath. And I'm glad that we're opening this conversation again.
In the last 2 years, so our guest is from the Asian Boss Girl podcast, ABG, and her name is Janet. But in the last 2 years, their podcast, she does this podcast with two other women, Asian women, Melody and Helen. And their podcast really blew up during this time because it became so relevant. Not that it wasn't relevant before, but I think more people were seeking this sort of content. And I love that on their podcast, they talk about all facets of their lives as related to their cultural backgrounds. And, one of the co-hosts, Helen, just had a baby. She's married with a baby. And then Melody and Janet, who we have on our show, they're both single and trying to navigate this whole dating scene like all of us. And there's the added layer of being Asian women. So I'm glad we're having this open conversation, because I think even in the beginning of this, I was just saying, I would love to know what's going on because I'm not in the dating scene anymore. And I want to know if things have changed from the last time I was even, swiping on the apps.
Right. Because you've definitely had your experiences, and we'll get into them in the episode, but you've shared a lot too. And I think it's really interesting, especially for me, who's clearly not Asian, but it's really good to, continue to hear other people's perspectives, because I think this is something that is very prominent in my Asian communities of friends and very rarely comes up in my white groups. So I think it's just a testament that a lot of this stuff is siloed, unfortunately. And I feel like even recently, I don't see it on the mainstream news, but Mei Lee, who is one of our past guests, does a phenomenal job reporting on all the Asian hate crimes that are happening. But I'm always like, why is this not more prominent other places?
Yeah, and that makes me think about the timing of this episode because we are closing out API Heritage Month. And
Hmm.
usually, I feel like every other year when we celebrate API Heritage, it's been about celebrations, it's like about accomplishments. And this year, I think people are really hoping to highlight some of the challenges and obstacles that the Asian community is going through. So I feel like the media is not comfortable with that because they wanted to stay safe in the whole like let's
Hmm.
just celebrate all the Asian figures and and just sweep everything else under the rug. But this year, I think the Asian community is like, fuck this. If you are not going to report it, we're going to report everything that's going on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, a few weeks ago, we talked about the recall of Chesa Boudin, which
Hmm.
I just want to make a point that I am now extremely self conscious about saying things incorrectly. And I went on Google and listened to Google Voice of how to pronounce his name. And it misled me. I always used to say Chesa Boudin and it said Chesa Boudin. And then I listened to like some speech the other day and I'm like, God damn it. Like I was led astray. So, anyways, that's my little quick caveat
I
here.
don't think I
But
actually think it's pronounced like boudin, like boudin.
I
It's
feel
like
like
in
no one knows
between.
how to pronounce his
Yeah,
name, is
exactly.
what
So
I'm
you're not
learning.
alone. You're not
But
the only one.
Google does not know how to pronounce it either, clearly. But what I thought was interesting, though, there is that the largest racial demographics that are voting for the recall, for anyone out of San Francisco, this is the district attorney that is very soft on crime policies. And it's kind of, it's has a recall because people feel unsafe in this environment. And the largest population of folks that are skewing towards voting yes on the recall are Asian Americans.
Mm.
And we actually got a lot of people that reached out saying thank you for addressing this on the podcast. Like, we know this isn't a relationship topic, but it does impact our safety. And I would say, like, out of the people that reached out, a large portion was Asian American.
Mm.
So I think this is something that is front and center of just like every day, our daily lives are impacted because we don't feel safe in our communities. This isn't just SF. I mean, Asian hate
Hmm.
crimes are all over the country right now.
Yeah, I think people, when they think about Asian hate crimes, they think it's about like murders and shootings, which do exist. But I think people
Yeah.
fail to forget, or maybe this is just not out in the open, that Asians are always the target of petty crimes too, break ins, burglaries. Because of this idea that all Asians have money and all Asians have valuables. So you break into their cars and break into their homes or you rob them on the street. So just don't forget that the petty crimes are also part of the Asian hate crimes.
Yeah. And there's like associations with being weaker and not being able to like
Mm.
fight back, especially like for women. And I think that's why it can be really scary. I think all women face danger on like, I think we all have heightened senses of danger. But I think it's really unfortunate that people feel like unsafe, elderly people, unsafe to leave their
Yes.
homes and take a walk. Like it's horrible what's going on right now.
Yes, yes. And I want to just quickly bring up the church shooting because my heart is breaking for the family of the doctor who died in trying to basically save the entire community that he was with. He really went after the shooter and he was shot and he later died. But I want to quickly touch upon this issue too because it's a Chinese man shooting a Chinese community, and you can call them Chinese or Taiwanese. I know it's very polarizing. End of the day, they're Chinese or they're of Chinese descent, and it's really sad that with all the Asian hate crimes going on, we still have turmoil within our own community
Mhm.
that we
Yeah.
can't somehow get over. So it's like it's double whammy, right? It's like we're getting it from the outside communities, but we're also getting it internally. And I hope that we can have more conversations within our own communities about what's going on and how we can be more unified instead of freaking killing each other. Like it's not the way to do it, not the way to progress.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. And I think, yeah, like this episode too can serve as, for our Asian community listeners, which we know there are a lot of, as, you know, feeling like I'm not alone in this, that other people are going through these same struggles. But I think also for anyone that's not in the Asian community, it's really important to listen, to be there for your friends, to be there for the people you date. Like, you may be dating
Yes.
people that have these struggles that you're just totally unaware of. And I mean, like, I've found some of my like white friends like just don't understand it all. I think maybe I understand a little more because I'm a minority in itself as a Jewish
Hmm.
person. Like, we've experienced hate as well. But I think a lot of people that I don't want to like, you know, stereotype too much, but a lot of people like just don't seem to like understand what's happening. So hopefully if you are on that boat, no shame. But the fact that you're here listening to an episode titled Dating as an Asian Woman, that's major props in itself.
Yeah, props to you. And we've all been bullied somehow, right? Thinking back to high school, I just watched Senior Year on Netflix. Terrible movie, but also great movie. It just brought up so many feelings from high school of just being ostracized, being the outsider, being not cool enough or not good enough and not good looking enough. We've all been there, right? And so it's very similar to feel like you're the other and then people hating you
Mhm.
for things that are completely out of your control, like how you look and the color of your skin.
Right. Speaking
Uh-oh.
of being bullied,
Uh-oh.
I feel like Yue and I were bullied last week.
Oh, 1,000%. I'm still mad, but amused.
We try. Okay, everyone knows we talk about ratings and reviews all the time. This is the livelihood of podcasts. So
Yes.
again, if you've left us 5-star review, thank you, thank you, thank you. It helps so much. If you've left us a 4-star or a 3-star, and there's less than nice comments, while we don't love seeing those, sometimes they can be helpful, or we can at least understand where they're coming
Constructive
from.
feedback. Yes.
Not ideal still because it's the livelihood of our podcast and it's a free podcast. You could also just move on, but it's still better than what we received the other day. Do you want to do the honors or do you want me to read it?
You read it. You pulled it up, right?
Okay. So we got this review. Yue texted me. It was like, did you see the latest review? Because we do get an email alert that comes through with any new
Yes.
rankings and reviews. It is titled Two Losers.
Yeah, always a good start.
1 star. 1 star. Just
least we
two
got one.
losers who I don't think they can leave 0. Just two losers who want women to be difficult, obnoxious, and unpleasant. Un is all capitalized. They also advocate for violence, all capitalized, towards men. Hopefully these garbage bags do get arrested for assault.
Arrested.
I've never been called a garbage bag before. It's kind of fun.
It's a first. Or a loser.
Yeah.
Like outwardly
well-
called a loser.
We did
Sad.
share this to Love of the Time of Corona, our Facebook community, seeing if people, you know, could help us out because this does, like we said, it does reflect on the podcast. Someone did say, like, hopefully your listenership would be smart enough to realize that this is not true. But, you know, new people coming in, they don't know because they've never listened before. So we want to say thank you to everyone that kind of rallied to support us.
Yes.
Seeing the really nice reviews that came in, it made me tear up. It was so nice to see them and just like how there were so many people that were like, look, I've been listening for years and honestly, I just like have been lazy and I haven't written a review. And this
Yeah.
is like Yelp culture. Usually you don't leave the review unless it's really bad for the most part. Like it's extra steps people have to take. And they're like, this is my extra step and I'm willing to take it because this freaking sucks that you guys had to face this.
Y'all have our back. Thank you for having our back. And we feel like we have your back. So if we are portraying the content in any way that feels like we are telling women to be difficult, please let us know because we've tried really hard not to do that. The goal of our content is to help everyone be more open-minded when it comes to dating and to learn about what's out there and not to subscribe to specific behaviors. And we really hope this is not something we're trying to portray. And judging by the reviews that came in after, I don't think that we're doing that, but call us in if we are.
I mean, yes, of course, if there is that, please call us in. I feel like this was an anomaly. Like a lot of people commented, like, did this person even get the right podcast? Or, this sounds like an incel movement. Like, I think there is a lot of that is we don't know who's behind the review too. We were able to see that this person left another review that was also along the same lines for a
Oh,
different
really?
podcast, but gave it 5 stars. I was like, what the fuck? It was like basically like this podcast is like sexist and, telling women that they should do all this stuff. But then it was like 5 stars.
What?
I'm like, could we have at least gotten the 5 star if we're going to get this review?
Oh, they got confused.
Yeah.
Like, what are the star ratings mean? Well, end of the day, all we're trying to do is create good content. And this is very intentional what we're doing here. So I really hope that after this we can move on from this comment. Thank you all for for hiding it and knocking it down the list. But end of the day, again, this is what gives us purpose with this podcast, is to give you all great content and hopefully make dating better for all.
Yeah, I think the theme of this plus this entire episode is let's continue to spread love, not hate, because hate is bad.
Hate is so bad. I do want to spread some love to a very small Dateable LA gathering we had over the weekend.
Oh, yes.
So I can name all of them because there are 4 of us. We've got Brian and Tony and Kim. Thank you all for coming out. We had such a great dinner. We were welcoming Tony to LA. He just moved from New York, and just a really fun conversation because it was the first time I had met I've met Brian in person before, but first time meeting Kim and Tony in person. And Julie was really excited about me meeting them in person, especially Tony, because we've had him on our podcast. And she's like, oh my God, tell me what he's like in person. And he's the same. He's the same cool, great guy that he is in person.
Well, Tony and Brian are moderators of Love in the Time of Corona and hosts of the Sounding Board. So we've known them for a long time, and Brian has also been a guest on the podcast, and Kim has been a member of the Sounding Board for quite some time too. So it's really nice to meet the people that, we engage with digitally so much.
Yes, it was so much
Cool.
fun.
Well, other announcements, speaking of engaging digitally, we are re-releasing our Finding Your Person program.
Yay.
This will be coming up. We're not saying the date quite yet, but make sure you get on the wait list because you'll be getting some freebie goodies by going on the wait list. You'll be getting some, videos that we've put out that kind of describe the method to our madness. So make sure to get on the wait list at findingyourperson.com so you get all of these, and then you can also decide if this is the right program for you. We've had, 3 rounds of it so far, or 2 rounds? I'm blanking. 2 rounds. We've done 2 rounds so far. So this will be our 3rd cohort, and we love seeing the results of this and just how people shift their whole mindsets. They start to see dating in a different way, and of course with that comes better prospects and budding relationships. We've had people that come in that are deciding if they should end a relationship that they're currently in. We've had people that are at the start of a budding relationship and they want to get it off the ground in the right way. And then we also have people that, have been on the apps and have been dating for quite some time and feel stuck and want a different approach. So regardless of where you're at, there's a good chance that this program would be a good fit for you. Of course, we'll let you decide that, and you can do so by getting on the wait list and seeing those videos firsthand.
So head on over to findingyourperson.com. This is where you can get on the wait list and get all the updates to come.
Cool. And then last announcement, follow us on Instagram at Dateable Podcast. That's where we show the clips of these episodes. We share inspirational quotes. We had a really good one that went up. Don't let anyone rent space in your head unless they're a good tenant. And if you want to feel good inspiration, just go over to our Instagram. We're here to support you in all methods and all digital mediums.